Friends and enemies, welcome to yet another edition of the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. I'm Len the Legend, and today I'm going to be interviewing Daniel Sempere Pico, otherwise known as Bitcoin Gandalf. And Gandalf, or Daniel, has been traveling the world, and I'm going to hopefully pick his brain as for, easy immigration to other countries as a Bitcoiner. But not just that, also catch up with what's going on with him because it's been a heck of a long time since we last talked to him on the show. But either way, before I go any further, got to talk about the three sponsors of the show. Number one, we have EasyDNS.com, and this is a sponsor that's been with us for the longest period of time. What could you do with EasyDNS is, well, if you have a website that you already have established and you want to migrate it to a more reputable company, safer company, more private company, you could do that. So you can move all your web hosting files to EasyDNS. Or if you plan to start up a website, you have a business and you want to become more professional and have your own website, well, they'll help you out with setting it up, getting it going, and you'll be established. Also, domain names, if you want to register a domain name or move it over, you could do it with EasyDNS. Web hosting, mention that. Email hosting, well, you want to have your own email server, you could do that with them. If you already have one established, you could move it over or set up a new one. That's the different options you have over there. You could do Nostr relays. You can do a whole bunch of different things you could do with EasyDNS. Check them out. If you use our promo code CBP Media, you'll get 50% off your initial purchase. What this enables you to do, well, just stock up, right? Make this first purchase be extremely large so you're going to maximize your savings. Check them out, easydns.com. Second sponsor is Bull Bitcoin. What can I say about them? Price of Bitcoin is high, so you can buy Bitcoin with them. Or you want to sell, you can sell Bitcoin with them. On-chain, Lightning, a lot of different options. If you want to even use your Bitcoin, Bull Bitcoin will help you use it in a couple of different ways. Number one, you got some bills to pay, and, well, you could use your Bitcoins to pay those bills. So through Bull Bitcoin, you can help facilitate the payment of those bills using your Bitcoin. Very cool. Also, you can't really spend your Bitcoin in the real world. It's difficult to do so, but they could help you out because they could sell you gift cards. So you could trade your Bitcoin for gift cards, and those gift cards you could use in the real world. So indirectly, you are spending your Bitcoin and you're living on the Bitcoin standard just the way Satoshi wanted you to. Check them out. If you haven't opened an account yet with our promo code below, do so now, because if you do and you provide the necessary information and everything, you get $21 added to your account. They're non-custodial. This is the exchange you want to deal with. They're the best around, and unfortunately, they're only catering to Canadians right now, and even people in France, I believe. But either way, if you're in Canada, you could open up an account. If you're elsewhere, you're probably SOL. Too bad. So sad. Third sponsor, we have Decentral Tech, and if you want to do home mining, these are the guys you want to talk to. You want to get a BitAxe, so quiet, efficient mining. You can do that. You want to go more powerful, you can get S9, S19, S21. You can get all these different options. You get something that you can plug it into your regular 110 volt outlet, or you get something that you can use 220. A lot of different options with them. So you get the loud, the quiet, everything in between. So you want to do a small setup for your garage or your own big farm. These are the guys to check out. They are based in Canada, so if you're looking to mine in Canada, these are the guys you want to talk to. They are the best in the game. They provide great service, and if you have any questions, they'll be able to answer them for you ASAP. The BitAxe is one of the big things they sell. Also, there's the CBP branded BitAxe. I'm not sure if there's any left, but if there are, you may want to check them out and buy one for yourself. And that's it for the sponsors. And with that, we could transition to the man of the hour. So without further ado, let's bring on the man of the hour, Daniel, aka Bitcoin Gandalf. Daniel, ¿cómo estás?
What's up, Len? Very
Muy
good.
bien.
Muy bien, muy bien. Thanks for having me back on.
I appreciate you coming back on. Whatever, I mean, first time I think you're coming on this show without any moniker, any sort of gimmick, anything that's covering your face. This is the first time, I believe.
No. I think I came on once when I was living in the Isle of Man. I came on one time, I think, without the getup as well.
I'm curious, why shun it? What was the rationale for getting rid of the whole BTC Gandalf gimmick?
Well, so when I first started my Twitter account, I already had a Twitter under my real name and real face, and I just had some stuff going on. I didn't want all my people in real life knowing that I was like kind of obsessing over Bitcoin. And I remember following some people in crypto Twitter back in 2017, like 2016, 2017. 2017 was the first time that I remember hearing about Bitcoin. So I got on Twitter and I started following like people in the crypto Twitter space. And one of those people was Crypto Cobain. And I just remember that a lot of people were anonymous in like the crypto Twitter space. So I decided to make my account anonymous as well for that reason, and for the fact that like I already had an account under my real name. But then, and of course, I wasn't expecting it. I could have never imagined that I would be here right now, and and that I would end up working in the Bitcoin space and all that. So, when I got a job and I started going to conferences, it was just it became, everyone already knew my face. I would tell people my real name, so I wasn't really anonymous anymore, and it was kind of hard to like. It was easier to connect with people once they recognized my face as well. Because I always had to like gauge, is someone on Twitter, and if they are, I would be like, oh, I'm Gandalf on Twitter, by the way, and then they'd be like, oh, no way, I know you. So it's easier to connect under real name, real face. Plus, it ties in just with everything else I'm doing in terms of like I'm doing some like personal brand marketing consultancy stuff. And for that, I always recommend for my clients to, if they want to build a personal brand, to do it under using their real name, real face.
Now, I'm curious. I'm going to say the name. Hopefully, I pronounce it correct. Daniel Sempere Pico.
Very well said. That's right.
Is that Spanish background?
Yeah. So I was born. My whole family is Spanish. I was born in Spain, but I've never lived there.
Right. Okay. But you
Yeah.
speak some Spanish, though.
Yeah,
A lot of
Spanish is so technically. I was brought up bilingual, Portuguese and Spanish, because when I was born, my parents lived in Portugal, and then we moved to Brazil. So I lived in Portugal and Brazil for the first 8 years of my life before I moved to Hong Kong. So I was brought up speaking Spanish at home and Portuguese at school and with my friends. And then I moved to Hong Kong and I forgot how to speak Portuguese and learned English.
I'm sure it would all come back to you if you were immersed in the environment for long enough. It would all just click in.
And it's very similar to Spanish as well. So
yes,
I can understand Portuguese. It's just a struggle to speak it.
Yes. Now I want to go back to you going to conferences and everything. I would have imagined going there with the whole gimmick must have been just a pain in the ass. Just wearing it, keeping it on. The beard must have been.
Oh no! So I never even wore the outfit to any conferences ever. I just went, like this.
But I've seen pictures of you going to conferences with them on.
So I did. I was asked to speak at Unconfiscatable 2022 on a panel called "Making Bitcoin Fun" or like "Make Bitcoin Fun Again" or something like that. And it was like me, Carla Walker. I think Nico was on the panel as well from Simply Bitcoin. And no, he was moderating perhaps, and Ugly Old Goat, which is a friend of Tone Vase. And so we all dressed up.
What a name!
Carla was wearing her orange wig, and like Walker was wearing like this like knight like a Roman soldier helmet, and I wore my Gandalf outfit because I knew that was going to be filmed and put on the internet. I wasn't showing my face then, and it was about making Bitcoin fun, so I dressed up as a wizard for that specifically. But that's the only time I think I've done it.
Now you're living in the UAE, Dubai specifically. I want to know what the heck is up with you since like the last time we caught up, because a lot has transitioned in your life between then and now, and I'd love to keep listeners and viewers up to date with what's going on with you.
Yeah, so I moved from the Isle of Man to Dubai. I was working at Brains, probably. Yeah, I was still working at Brains the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
So when I started my BTC Gandalf account, I eventually ended up transitioning out of my real estate business and real estate career and sort of into marketing and Bitcoin. So I was working in marketing at Brains for almost 3 years. At the end of last year, I sort of wanted to get back to doing my own thing again. So I left Brains. My family was also looking to change it up from Isle of Man. So my sister had moved to Dubai. My mom had moved to Dubai. And we were deciding between either moving back to Hong Kong, which is where I lived for 25 years, and my wife and I met and got married in Hong Kong as well. So we were toying up the idea of either moving back to Hong Kong or moving to Dubai. And we did a holiday, visited both places with our daughters, and we just liked Dubai better. We felt it was a bit more family friendly, and also we also have the pull, of course, of having my sister and her family here and my mom here as well.
Is it easy to get into Dubai as an international, so somebody without a visa, without, like, what's the story? Like, what's the process? Because the reason being, there's a lot of people in this neck of the woods where I'm about, is that people are trying to look at life in the next few years, and maybe things over here may not transition the way things can. So it's going to be going into a direction they're not happy in. So they're looking for somewhere else to establish their roots. How easy is it to get into Dubai?
I wouldn't recommend Dubai. It's terrible here. They shouldn't come. I'm joking. No, it's awesome. There's obviously like people from all over the world flocking here because, obviously it's very tax friendly. The quality of life is super high. It's a modern international city. It's like well connected, good medical system. Everything runs pretty smoothly. So there's a lot of people moving here. In terms of moving here from if you're not a UAE citizen and you don't have a visa, it's like the easiest place I've ever gotten a visa. And I've lived in maybe 5 or 6 countries. It's the easiest place to get a visa. So I came here on what's called like a freelance visa. So you essentially set up you get a trading like a business license as a sole trader, and then you can apply for a visa under that business license. But you don't have to open a company or anything. This is just literally you're a sole trader. So it's like self-employed. You're allowed to work for businesses. You're not allowed to hire anyone, and I don't think you're allowed to like sell your services to individuals. And you can get that visa. You don't have to have any income. You don't have to have. I think I only presented my passport. That's pretty much it.
Wow.
They asked me for like a bit of proof of, the work that I was like working in the thing that I said I was doing. I think I put like there's categories of like activities, and I think I put like social media marketing, and like there was like social media influencer that you can put like 3, and I put like copywriter or something as well because that's what I was doing. And then I just like basically gave him a Google Doc that said like I was working in marketing at Brains, like here's my Twitter account, here's like all these podcasts I've been on, that sort of thing. And that was it.
Awesome.
Got the visa. Yeah, within like it was literally I think I got it within like a week or 2 weeks.
Could you imagine? Yeah, you submit the application. I'm a shit poster. I'm a Bitcoiner. Let me in.
Pretty much. I mean, I sent them,
how long is the visa valid for?
My account. So you can get the visas that you can get under a business are 2 years, 1 or 2 years. So I've actually like switched. I've opened a company now, and I'm switching my visa to my company. I said to be under my company.
And in terms, I mean, I don't want to really pick your brain here. I'm curious.
No, go for it.
Cost of living, what's it like over there compared to other places you lived?
So I always measure everything to Hong Kong, which is like the most expensive place in the world to live.
Yeah.
So it seems cheap by comparison. It is cheap. It is cheaper by comparison. Like I live in a 4-bedroom house. Like it's called a villa here. Essentially, it's like a semi-detached house. So I've got like neighbors on one side, but not on the other.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I live in like it's got outdoor space, like 4-car driveway. It's in a complex with like a swimming pool, a gym, like a mall that has a supermarket, a pharmacy. It's very common. Like these sort of like villa complexes are very common here in Dubai. And it's the same price as what I used to pay for a tiny 2-bedroom apartment in a very old, like 50 or 60-year-old building in Hong Kong.
But it's still very expensive, I would imagine, in Hong Kong. As you're mentioning, it's
I was paying like, I think my 2-bedroom apartment was like maybe $2,500 US, or between $2,500 and $3,000 US.
Yeah,
but it was very centrally located. Like now I live really far out of the city.
Was it any trouble for you getting a license, getting a car, driving over there?
It was, so no, if you have most licenses are directly transferable to a UAE license,
Uh-huh.
not Isle of Man though. So annoyingly,
That
like
sucks.
my wife and I moved from UK to Isle of Man, so we transferred our licenses over to Isle of Man, and then from Isle of Man to Hong Kong is not transferable. But I had a Hong Kong license, and she switched her license back to UK before we moved, and then switched her UK one to UA. So for most places, it's transferable.
What about like integration into the society over there? Because obviously you've been around the world, so you're able to fluidly adapt to different situations. But how is it over there? Because from from what I see, it's a very conservative society for women. Like, how easy is it to integrate into Dubai?
I mean, so obviously some Muslim women choose to like wear their hijab and like cover up and everything, but there's also women with like their tits out and like their butt cheeks sticking out of their shorts. So there isn't and people and you hear people like, oh, if you kiss in public or if you show I've seen people holding hands, kissing in public, hugging, making out. I've never seen it be an issue. And there's scantily clad women and there's women that are fully covered up. So there's a bit of everything. What people don't realize here is that something like 95, let's just say over 90% of the population is expatriate or immigrant.
Yeah.
So the UAE, there's only like 1 million maybe Emirati citizens, and the rest is foreigners.
The rest.
And I think Indian. I think Indian is the largest population here is Indian, but it's the most multicultural place I've ever visited or lived in my entire life. Like there's languages like I've traveled enough around the world that I can recognize. I thought I could recognize most languages, at least be like, oh, that's Dutch, that's German, that's French, that's whatever. There's languages being spoken here. I'm like, I have absolutely no idea where that's from. Like, I couldn't even point in the right direction.
It's a melting pot over there. That's awesome. And
yeah.
How many Lambos do you see a day?
There's a couple where I live. I mean, there's nice cars everywhere here. There's nice cars everywhere. There's also like a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit boxes as well.
Really?
There's a mix of everything. Yeah, there's a lot. Like the amount of Nissan Sunnies and like not even I guess Toyota Yaris's and stuff like that.
That's fucked
up.
Because
people, I mean, it's there's a mix of everything.
Yeah. It's just the perception I have of that place is just extremely wealthy and there's a lot of but I guess you get a broad range of the spectrum. You have to have moderately income, moderate income coming in and also high income, and so people are going to drive cars accordingly. That's associated with their salary.
There's a lot of migrant workers here who are like doing more of the blue collar type jobs, and so obviously they're not driving around in Lambos. And then there's like the ultra wealthy people who are driving around in Lambos, and I think just because of like the kind of people that are more likely to move to Dubai are the ones for whom like if they can save 20 or 30 or 40% of their like wealth in terms of taxes, it's like a massive amount. If you live somewhere and you like sort of make an average income, it's not worth moving to Dubai because you're not saving enough in taxes. But if you're making millions and millions of dollars, it makes a lot of sense to come here because you can save a lot.
Isle of Man, I want to just transition quickly to that. Is that a place for Bitcoiners as well to go flock to, or is it just something personal for you that you went there?
Yes, we were so I was living in Scotland, and my wife and I had made the decision to move to Scotland before I got into Bitcoin. So then I got into Bitcoin, and then I realized like, oh, not the friendliest place towards Bitcoin, and like taxation wise, I want to be able to spend my Bitcoin without having to keep a spreadsheet of like when I'm buying, when I'm selling, and all of that. And I was like, so this is not really tenable. And I was also selling my business in Hong Kong. So I was like, I need to move somewhere that's more tax friendly and get set up for all of that. And an opportunity came up to do a contract role for Coin Corner. They're an exchange over in the Isle of Man. So it just kind of all lined up at the same time, and we decided to move there. And our plan was to stay there indefinitely. But it was just a bit too, it's a bit too isolated, a bit too quaint for our liking, especially just, I guess, what we were used to. We were used to Hong Kong, and then going to Isle of Man is a massive change. I enjoyed it. My wife was struggling with it a bit more than I was. because generally, like, since I left, part of the reason I left Hong Kong is like I knew I wanted to eventually start a new business, and
Yeah.
I know I need to do that. Like, I need to get my head down and work. So I was like, I don't want the social in Hong Kong. I have my lifelong friends there, so there's a lot of social distractions, and I just didn't want to have that. So everywhere I've gone, I've just kept to myself. Shit posts on Twitter, work, occasionally travel to conferences and spend time with my family. I'm not really like socializing or doing stuff outside of those things.
That's awesome. You got the priorities straight. The weather must
Yeah,
be shit in Isle of Man as well, right? Like it's got to be like, at
it's
least for
tough.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, in
it's
comparison,
very windy. It's very, very windy. It's very wet.
yeah.
It can be very cold. It goes dark at 3 p.m. or 3:30 p.m. in the winter. Summer
And
is lovely though.
where you are
Or can
now, how
be.
do you deal with the summers over there? I mean, it's always summer. It seems like over there. What do you deal with?
Yeah, it's just levels of here. It's like levels of heat. Although to be fair, now and from November to February, March at night, it can go down to like 13 degrees in the coldest parts of the year. And during the day, maybe it goes to like 25 degrees, and it's a dry heat. So
Yeah.
it's really nice. Like now it's like lovely going outside. In the summer, there's a couple of months, July and August are literally hell. You just don't go outside, really.
Yeah.
I can manage. I can just about manage like I tried to get out for a walk at like 5 or 6 a.m. and then another one at like 7 or 8 p.m. But besides that, the only thing that like my family, the only thing we did on the weekends is pretty much just go to the mall. It's the only thing you can do. We just go to the mall, have lunch, and then
Which
come
is
back home.
interesting because in Hong Kong, the summer times, you shower, you finish showering, you're sweating already.
Oh yeah,
So
Hong Kong. It's a different kind of heat. It can get humid here as well, but Hong Kong is just always humid. So you're
yeah,
always moist and sweaty. And it can also get really hot, like 33, 35 degrees. So it's not like in Hong Kong you can get out and about and do stuff. I would say it's more bearable to go outside in Hong Kong though than it is here. Like in Hong Kong,
wow,
if you really, if you get your sports gear on and you're like, I'm gonna sweat, it's fine. You can
yeah,
go for a hike. It's gonna be warm. It's gonna be hot, but you can
yeah,
survive. If you try to do that here, you will be fried to death because it's like 45, 50 degrees Celsius.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So the
gotta ask
sun's
you
too strong.
because you've been
Shoot.
involved in real estate in the past. Is real estate a
Hmm.
shitcoin?
Yes.
Explain.
I mean, as an investment, it's just compared to Bitcoin, it's no dice. Like it's hard to sell. You have to if you're buying it to rent out, you have to deal with tenants. People underestimate how much work that is. The margins aren't great, in terms of like your mortgage versus the rent your rental yield. Margins are pretty thin. So if you want to pay somebody to manage your property, if you pay a property manager, and then your like place is empty for 2 months between tenancies, like you can wipe out a lot of your profits,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's so many risks involved with that. You just don't know when you're dealing with the
Depending where
wrong.
you live, they can make more houses. Like it's not like it's hard. It's harder to make than other assets, but it's still like in Dubai, for example, they're building like 50,000 new units or something like that in the next like year or so. So they need massive net migration to fill those places. Things can, the government, a government can be voted in that suddenly is like, oh, we're going to increase taxes, and then like everyone leaves. I'm not saying about that here. Just generally, there's a lot of factors you can't control. Whereas like Bitcoin, it's very liquid. You can press a button and sell it. If you need cash today, you can press one button and sell it. Imagine if you're in if you're heavily invested in real estate and you need cash in a pinch, more difficult to liquidate. I guess you can like refinance and blah, but it's no dice.
Yeah, there's no comparison between the two, but there's one thing that home, and I'm not trying to sell real estate as the be all and end all. We have to live somewhere. It can't live in your Bitcoin, so somewhere you're gonna have to have either rent or buy something to live in. But beyond that, yeah, 100% Bitcoin is the way to go because, like I said, you can't live in your Bitcoin. You gotta live
I mean,
somewhere.
I'm not saying I'm not someone that's like against owning your home. I just don't think people should look at it like most people. For most people, their home is their biggest asset.
Yep,
Right, and it doesn't make
I'm one
any
of them.
sense because, yeah, if you need, the day you need the money, you're homeless.
Yep,
because you have to sell it, right?
yep, yeah,
So
100%.
I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense to buy a home if you treat it sort of like as a I know you're not going to lose, probably not going to lose money on it or whatever, but I'd rather use Bitcoin or something else as my store of value thing, and a home is pretty much like I'm buying it so I don't have to worry about having to move if my landlord's trying to increase the rent or sells the house or whatever, right? But I would have to have like a substantial amount of, I wouldn't sell like, half my Bitcoin stash to buy a house or anything like that. It would have to be like some sliver of the stack to buy a place.
Yeah, there's got to be some balance between the two. And to be perfectly honest, if I look at my situation, I got my house in 2008. If I didn't buy it and simply just bought Bitcoin and rented, I'd be in a far better place. But mentally, I am in a different state because I own this place. I don't have to think about anything. I just pay my mortgage every 2 weeks. And it just, I still buy my Bitcoin on the side, but there's a level of comfort I have with owning it. Real estate is definitely a shitcoin, but
I mean, you can also I mean, if you've had your place for for that long, people like you can also refinance. They pull some equity out if you want to buy some corn. You still have your house. You have more money in Bitcoin. You're leveraged, sure, but it's like that's pretty much one of the safest ways, I would say, to leverage.
100%, and the bank will be more than willing to give me any money because there's equity in the home and they could get it. If they force me out, it's theirs. And they're happy at that point. But it's just, there's something I missed. I wanted to talk about earlier. You are the Monopoly.com.
Yes,
I want to talk about that. So what is that, and how is it going?
It's good. So so when I left Brains, I didn't know specifically what I was going to do. I just knew that I enjoyed writing. And Twitter was going really well. And so I knew that I could figure something out with that. I explored a few things. I'm working on a book that's just for like pure fun sort of thing. But just talking to people, and like people are reaching out to me and asking me, "Oh, will you do this for me? Will you do that for me?" And just like sort of getting a signal from what people were wanting from me. I decided to start like I'm a half agency, half consulting. So I'm ghostwriting for people, so helping them build their personal brand, but like mostly for like founders and executives who are too busy to spend time on Twitter and produce content themselves. I ghostwrite for them. So we get on a call every so often. I ask them, I come prepared with questions and sort of like general topics I want to hit, and they just talk. And then I basically just turn their answers into content for them.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one part. That's one side of the business is ghostwriting. The other side is I'm working with like creators, consultants, anyone really that wants to build a personal brand. And the concept is that, if you have a business plus your personal brand, you can turn your business into a monopoly.
This could be monetized too on X too, because as you grow on there, they're paying for eyeballs on every post, right? So there's a way to monetize that as well. But furthermore, like, have you even introduced people to Nostr?
No, I'm doing well. I mean, if somebody wanted me to write on Nostr for them, that I would do that. Most people want to do X or LinkedIn so far in terms of ghostwriting.
Right.
In terms of the consulting side of things, yeah, clients are mostly for written content. Clients are mostly sticking to LinkedIn and Twitter, just because that's where most people are. Nostr is still like a very niche thing, and only one of my clients is sort of like working in the Bitcoin space. The other ones are different industries.
So it's inherent on you to orange pill all these fellas. So
I mean, it'd be hard for me to sell someone on Nostr because I barely use it myself now.
I'm like the 1%.
Well, to be fair, some of my clients are Bitcoiners. They don't have a Bitcoin business, so they just like they have a consulting practice or whatever, and they just have Bitcoin as like their savings or their as an investment.
In terms of like myself, I'm gonna just say I'm not on LinkedIn and I'm on Nostr, so I'm the total anomaly with this.
You're the opposite. Yeah.
I don't know why, because for me, I don't deal with LinkedIn. I don't know why it would help me out for my but I can understand other people too, because there's a lot of professionals on there. It's a good way to network. And
yeah, correct. I have somebody selling B2B consulting, so LinkedIn is perfect for them.
Yeah. Now you're talking about your book. You're not going to just just throw that out there and just run away from that. I want to hear more about this book.
Yeah. So one of the things that sort of popped up was I was doing these crazy historical Bitcoin stories. I was just like writing threads about historical Bitcoin events, and one of the so I was going to I was then working on an outline for a like crazy historical Bitcoin stories book, and in coming up with it was going to be like 21 stories, maybe over 3 books, and one of those stories was so good that I was like, this needs to be its own book. And so I decided to just focus on that as a first book first.
Any idea when this may be released?
I've got like 20,000 sort of like unorganized words written down already. But I started it before I started doing this like consulting and ghostwriting thing. So that's now taking up the majority of my time. And I haven't really worked on the book in like a month and a half or 2 months. So it's not really the priority is the business. That's what pays for the bills and stuff, and the book is just as and when I can. So I was trying to get it done by the end of this year, but I don't think it's going to happen because I'm quite busy with clients, and I'm launching more offers and getting more clients and stuff. So we'll see, but it won't be a long book. It's basically the story of Wences Casares. He's like Michael Saylor before Michael Saylor. So he orange pilled a bunch of like Wall Street and Silicon Valley billionaires. Like he orange pilled like Reid, what's his name? Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, Mike Novogratz. There's a ton of Bill Miller, the value investor. He orange pilled a bunch of people back in the day. I actually think that he's partly responsible for the 2013 bull run, because he got so many millionaires and billionaires into Bitcoin all around the same time that back then the amount of money they were plowing into Bitcoin would have made it skyrocket. Yeah.
Because it was,
and then he started Zappo Bank. So they were quite famous in 2015, 2016 because they had these underground Swiss military bunkers where they were storing keys offline. And they were the biggest custodian of Bitcoin in the world at one point. And then Coinbase Custody bought them. Well, Coinbase Custody bought their institutional Bitcoin custody business, and that's how they ended up with the Grace. That's how Coinbase has ended up becoming the biggest custodian in the world now, is because they bought Zappo institutional custody. They had the Grayscale Bitcoin back in the day, so that transferred over to Coinbase. Yeah. So when Wences Casares' life story is insane. He was already probably worth hundreds of millions before he found Bitcoin in 2011. He was an early internet entrepreneur, so he started like Latin American's first online brokerage and sold that to Banco Santander for $500 million in just before the .com bubble burst, literally like weeks before in 2000.
Did you see about Cynthia Lummis that she proposed? I think it was her that proposed a bill about.
Yeah, it was proposed at Bitcoin 2024. So they want to roll over the US's current Bitcoin holdings, which if you have a look, the CEO of Brains did a thread about this recently, and he sort of like netted out Bitcoin that's doesn't belong to the US. Like they have the Bitfinex Bitcoin, the one that the Bitfinex, Razzle Khan and Ilya stole from Bitfinex. That's like 105,000 Bitcoin or something like that. That's in that's in their 210,000 Bitcoin stash. So once that gets removed, it's like 95,000 Bitcoin. They've already got authorization to sell 60 something thousand Bitcoin that they hold from Silk Road, from someone who hacked it from the Silk Road, I think. So those Bitcoin could potentially be sold before then, or if they're already like earmarked to be sold, I don't know what the like legal stat, because this went to court. This was like these Bitcoins were sort of locked in a legal battle for however long. Some people are claiming it was theirs from a bankruptcy estate. Anyway, it's not clear what will happen to this Bitcoin. Would you put it past the Democrats to sell it before Trump gets in office? I wouldn't. So there could be 69,000 other Bitcoin that they sell. The Bitfinex Bitcoin is going to Bitfinex. I don't think the US government can. I mean, of course, they can just be like, sorry, change our minds. Like, good luck to you, and steal it. But then, I wouldn't be supportive of that. I wouldn't be supportive of a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve that's stolen Bitcoin from companies in the Bitcoin space.
Well, because there's always the talk of them purchasing or accumulating 1 million BTC over a 5-year period of time, and I assume that cannot be done through confiscation. It would have to be done through purchasing, right? Has any merit to that?
I mean, it could. I don't believe that it would be done through confiscation, but they could. There's 1 million Bitcoin in between all the Bitcoin ETFs, and they're all being custodied by Coinbase in the US. So I wouldn't.
Nah, they would never do it. I can't.
I don't think they would.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't think so either. But they could if they wanted to. I don't think they
Sure.
will.
It's within the realm of
No,
possibility.
of course. But again, like we're all like, and the Fed, the money printing is theft, and then people are like cheering that, oh, it's okay to print money if you buy Bitcoin. Like, I agree that buying Bitcoin is a better use of the printed dollars than like other stuff they might do, but it's not necessarily like, I would personally prefer a smaller government that is less involved in these like things. I would just rather them they don't need a Bitcoin strategic reserve if they just cut the size of a government, get the hell out the way, and let people just like have a smaller government, let the private sector do its thing.
I think that ship has sailed for the US, though. I'm not trying to defend whatever.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if they're going to pump my bags, great.
Yeah.
I don't live in the US. I'm talking from like principles and my principles and values. But at the end of the day, if they print dollars to buy Bitcoin, pumps my bags, I can, I have more money to send my kids to school and like go on holidays with my family and take care of like the people closest to me, and that's mainly what I care about. So, thank you, US.
Well, it kind of just shines a light what El Salvador has done, and they've done the right thing. A smaller country that abolished their native currency, they adopted the U.S. as their national U.S. dollar as their national currency. So they had so little to lose and a heck of a lot to gain by just simply adopting a Bitcoin strategy, and they've done that at a right time. And I think they're still buying 1 Bitcoin a day, to the best of my knowledge. So, like they've done it right, and that's the ones you're going to be looking at. Those smaller countries that could. They don't have a lot really to lose by just going the Bitcoin route. And I hope that none of them look at the price of Bitcoin and say the ship has sailed, it's too late now. In my opinion, it's not too late. This thing is going to run up quite a bit. But I think what El Salvador has done is a copy pasta. They could do this over and over again in many other countries out there. And others are mining, like Bhutan, for instance, or Ethiopia. They're mining Bitcoin. Yeah. So they have some Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they're not going out there and just simply printing money to do it. They're doing proof of work to get it. So that's pretty cool to see that.
Bitcoin's still a minuscule asset class when you compare it to other asset classes. And I honestly think that over the next 10, 15, 20 years, you'll see more and more people using Bitcoin as their main store of value over S&P 500, over real estate, over bonds. Even if it's just getting to the price of gold, we've got another 10x to do from here, assuming gold doesn't move anymore right now. Mm-hmm. So that's like the bear case is 10. The bear case for me is a 10x.
Holy shit. Did you see the inflows? Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's a no-brainer. From our generation and even slightly older, like I'm a millennial, is a generation above millennials Gen X. Is that right?
I think so. I'm an Xer.
Anyway, I think from Gen X, like they're not going to be buying gold. You already see a lot of people like who are selling real estate to buy Bitcoin. If Bitcoin consistently outperforms, the reason why the S&P 500 index fund became a thing and became like a way, the meme that you just like put your money in S&P 500 index fund, you get 10% per year compounded over your 20 or 30 years, you can retire off that money, right? I think that's what Bitcoin is going to become that next thing. Because the reason why that exists is because the S&P 500 is consistently returned 10% per year. And so people just see it as like a safe bet that it's like a sure thing. If Bitcoin can do the same thing over the next 20 or 30 years, or even over the next like 10 or 15 years, so we have like a 30-year history we can point back to and say, look, Bitcoin has gone up, compounded 30% per year, 25% per year, then somebody will write the book that memes that Bitcoin is the best store of value asset, and then everyone will just start stacking Bitcoin instead of S&P 500 index, or there'll be more money flowing into it, right? There's corporations are barely in, institutions are barely in, countries are barely in. Like the vast majority of wealth in the world is barely dipping their toes in Bitcoin.
Did you look at the inflow for the Bitcoin ETF versus the gold ETF? Somebody posted a chart. The gold ETF year one versus the Bitcoin ETF. We still haven't finished year one in the United States, and it's off the chart with respect to it. So in terms of adoption
Sorry, go on.
I was like, within adoption, people, they seem to love the Bitcoin ETF versus the gold ETF. And you were talking about the gold ETF being like or gold in general being like a $14 trillion, $15 trillion market cap. That may lend credence to what you're saying, because just how much interest there is in the Bitcoin ETF versus the gold ETF when it was released, it just seems like there's way more interest with Bitcoin.
I thought what I saw was flows into the Bitcoin ETF were already more than one of the gold ETFs in their entire like history, 15 years or something. But it wasn't GLD. It was another one.
Either way, that just shows you how much interest there is in one compared to the other. And granted, the dollar today versus then, it's way more valuable then than it is now. So you can't say a dollar for a dollar makes sense, but still, the interest, for whatever reason, people love Bitcoin versus
yeah. I just never knew anyone who, I mean, okay, I bought silver in like 2006 because I got like, I fell for the whole narrative of like the industrial use of silver and it's going to pump the price up and whatever else. And yeah, I did my university dissertation on silver as an asset. Yeah,
you were psyoped into it.
yeah. And I still hear that narrative today, like that, the industrial case for silver. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone that owns gold. It's pretty much, it feels like it's just pretty much central banks and, a few institutions and hedge funds that used it as like a, flight to safety asset. But it feels like the holder base of Bitcoin is much broader than gold.
The one that really turned me off on gold was when Russia's gold was confiscated by the courts in the UK after Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia was unable to repatriate its gold. The courts just said, sorry, this is not your gold, not your, like, that's pretty shitty. Like, I understand what Russia did. Somebody may look at it and say that was terrible, but it shows you that possession is 9/10 the law when it comes to gold.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's very hard to custody. There's a lot of fakery and forgery. Mm-hmm. There's very high margins. Like if you're trying to take a physical bar of gold to like a pawn shop or like to a gold dealer and buy and sell, like they take a massive percentage, or the spread between what they buy and what they sell at is huge. If gold price pumps, gold miners are incentivized to go out and find more gold deposits and mine more gold. You can't do any of those things with Bitcoin. It's much easier to verify. It's much easier to sell. It's impossible to make more than what's programmatically going to be made, no matter how high Bitcoin goes. So,
touched upon Silk Road earlier about the U.S. They have some of the confiscated gold from there. What do you think about Ross being freed by Trump?
Yeah, I hope it happens. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about the specifics, of the case. I just know that it seems like where I pop from is like, should he have had some jail time? Maybe, maybe not. I don't really know if he did anything that was like against the law that they, could have like locked him up for 3 or 4 years. What it does seem is that he was like massively unjustly punished, right? Given a sentence that's far more severe than any crimes he may have committed, and that's why he's already been in there for 10 years. That's probably longer than I think any of the things that I sort of know that he might have done. So I'm glad he gets to be free. Plus, as a Bitcoiner, Silk Road did a massive amount to get Bitcoin on the map. So many people's stories of like the first time they heard about Bitcoin or they owned some Bitcoin is buying drugs on the Silk Road. So yeah. Let's see. Again, it's one of those things like the evidence points to the fact that Trump is going to free Ross. He said he's going to do it, whatever, but remains
day one.
I also day one. Yeah, exactly. I don't know about day one, but we live in a bubble, right? If you look at General Trump's speeches, he's not talking about Bitcoin. He only talks about Bitcoin to us. as in to Bitcoiners, right? There's specific targeted messages, at a Bitcoin conference, at the Libertarian Party conference, an interview here and there. He might pepper in a comment or whatever, but he's not running on a broad Bitcoin platform, right? He's not going to like some small town in Pennsylvania and being like, you should all save in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's gonna, he's not doing that at all. He's running on the inflation and immigration is like his two main points for the general population. So let's see if when he gets in there, because even though we raised, I guess, like Bitcoiners and the crypto industry raised quite a bit of money for him, it'll be interesting to see what happens once he's in there, because I don't buy into this whole like 100 million Bitcoin holders in the US or 50, whatever. Like Coinbase tries to always make it seem like there's 50 million people holding crypto or whatever. I still think we're like tiny, maybe a few million people in the US that have some Bitcoin. Most of those are not like hardcore Bitcoiners. Like we live in the Bitcoin Twitter echo chamber, so we think everyone, is like us, but we're a tiny minority. And so I wouldn't be surprised if once he gets in there, he's like, thanks for the votes, guys. Screw you.
And well, one thing that's going to be a wild card here is he can't run for another term as president. This is his last thing. So there's nothing he's going to be doing with thoughts of, I got to run again. And I got to put something in place that, I got to try to buy votes or win votes next time around. He doesn't need to do that. He just has this term. He just has to think about this term, for better or for worse. Like he's going to work with that for a 4-year plan, and that's that. And so I think that's a bit of a wild card. So he doesn't have to pander to anybody, really.
Yeah, but you just made me think of something. He could easily do start the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. The US holds Bitcoin for the next however many years, 4 years, and then when he's out of office and somebody else wins, and let's say it's the Democrats, and Bitcoin's up 5x from there, they're like, yeah, we're gonna, somebody could run on we're gonna sell the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, and we're gonna start a fund for Black entrepreneurs. You're gonna get a 20. I'm saying that because that's what Kamala recently said, right? She's gonna start a fund for Black entrepreneurs and give them 20 grand.
Yes,
guaranteed by the government. So essentially, it's a handout. It's not even a loan.
The best way
they can default on it and not pay back. So somebody could run on a platform that they're going to take that money and give it to the population, which is usually what politicians do, right? Is they buy your vote by whoever can give you the most free shit.
Imagine they time locked it. They bought the Bitcoin.
That would be funny.
Exactly. Lots of different things. All right. We're getting close to the hour. I don't want to keep you too much longer because, I understand you're quite busy. But I just have one last question for you. Are you still doing coding at all?
No, but you know what? When I just for context for the audience, when I was trying to figure out what to do, I knew it was going to be like, I knew I wanted to leverage the power of the internet and technology, right? So it was like I was thinking between going media or going code in terms of like the direction I wanted to go with what I wanted to do next. And at one point I decided it was going to be coding. And so I spent a couple of months where I was coding. I made a web app that pulled the Bitcoin price from a bunch of different APIs from different exchanges and just made an average Bitcoin price, and it would like tick over every like second. It would tick up and down and like flash green or red if it was going up or down, just like to practice. But it was just so this was like in March, April 2023. So just as ChatGPT was becoming big, and so even back then it was so incredible. I don't know that much about coding and stuff. I know the basics, but it was so easy to build this stuff just by telling ChatGPT what I wanted it to do and knowing a little bit of the basics of like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It was insane. And so now with tools like Cursor, there's I think there's one called like V0 or something, which is like for like wireframing and making like the MVP version of something. And then that with Cursor Replit, it seems like you could build anything with with just some like very basic foundational coding knowledge. So sometimes I am tempted to I get shiny object syndrome and I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if I could, go back to, but I'm just trying to focus, I felt the pain of switching careers and like basically letting a decade's worth some skills are transferable to what I'm doing now, which is great. But like some specific knowledge of real estate industry, and specifically in Hong Kong, it's very painful to switch and leave that knowledge behind and start again, because a lot of the gains come from like compounding experience and knowledge over years and years and years. And so what I'm trying to really focus on now is like develop my copywriting abilities, and the consulting thing. And then maybe, in 10 years time, when I'm sort of like maybe bored of this, or like I'm so good that it like takes up less of my time or whatever, then maybe I will do some coding. I'll try the coding thing just on the side for fun, not like trying to switch careers again, but just on the side for fun, build stuff. And if that ever goes into anything, then great. But I don't see myself ever like just leaving what I'm doing now to do something else again. This is going to be it for a while, and anything else would be a side hustle.
You enjoy doing what you're doing. It looks like build on your strengths and on your weaknesses you could work on in the future. So that's the way to do it. We've close to an hour. I appreciate you taking time to come on. Any last words? I'll let you build the next block here. Anything else you want to say? Pump your products before we sign off. Just want to pass the baton over to you.
Yeah, no, people can just follow me on Twitter at BTC Gandalf. From there, you'll be able to see anything I'm up to. And yeah, if I have an offer for either consulting or ghostwriting, it'll be on there. Or you can go to youarethemonopoly.com, sign up to my email list, and I also send offers out to my email list. And I send occasional emails, like sometimes it's daily, depending on how many things I have to say. Sometimes it's daily, sometimes it's a few times a week, but I talk about personal branding on there. And that's also where if I have open slots to work with clients, that's where I let people know. And I occasionally post it on Twitter as well. Although I like to keep Twitter mostly for shit posting and talking about Bitcoin.
I love it. Daniel, I appreciate you coming on. So we'll be back at this again Monday. And with that, take care.